Welcome to this special presentation from Progressive Indiana Network, the penultimate debate in our 2026 Democratic primary series. Tonight we feature Indiana's 6th Congressional District. The 6th consists of Fayette, Hancock, Henry, Johnson, Rush, Shelby, Union, and Wayne counties, and parts of Bartholomew, Marion, and Randolph counties. I'm Scott Aaron Rogers, host of the Who's Left podcast and the moderator for tonight's discussion. This evening's debate is presented by Progressive Indiana Network, an independent media collaborative supporting Indiana-focused progressive journalism, analysis, and commentary. The network provides a shared platform for writers, podcasters, and creators committed to covering state and local politics with independence and accountability. You can learn more at progressiveindiana.net. Primary elections are where the direction of a party is decided, not just who carries the banner in November, but what that banner actually represents. Tonight, we have three candidates who are looking to carry the Democratic banner in this race joining us. First, William Kory Amyx, also Nick Baker, and Dr. Cinde Wirth. Thank you all for taking the time to join us tonight. David Boyd was invited and confirmed, but withdrew at the last minute, citing a scheduling conflict. Here's how tonight's debate is going to work. After each candidate's 2-minute opening statement, we've got a series of 10 questions covering foreign policy, technology, immigration, affordability, healthcare, education, human rights, taxation, Social Security, and labor. Each of you will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. 30-second rebuttals will be given if one candidate specifically mentions another by name in their remarks. Later, we'll move into a speed round where I'm going to put a spotlight on areas of genuine disagreement within the big blue tent, because Democrats don't always agree and primary voters deserve to know what kind of Democrat they're getting. Finally, we'll wrap up with closing statements. Let's get started. By random draw, the first opening statement tonight goes to Mr. Amyx, followed by Dr. Wirth and Mr. Baker. Mr. Amyx, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you for having me tonight. Good evening. I am William Kory Amyx, and I'm running for Congress in Indiana's 6th District because Hoosiers are tired of politicians talking about problems while families keep paying more and getting less. I've knocked now on more than 23,000 doors across 11 counties in this district. Excuse me. I've sat at kitchen tables, in break rooms, libraries, living room, and on couches in living rooms, union halls, and small businesses. And what I've heard was clear. People do not want more slogans. They want someone who understands what they're going through and has a real plan to fix it. Tonight, that's what I'm here to offer. Real solutions on affordability, healthcare, education, public safety, democracy, and economic dignity. I'm not here to recycle talking points. I'm here to tell the truth, do the work, and get it done. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Amyx. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties with Dr. Wirth. So, Mr. Baker, I'm going to head and give you the next opening statement. You got 2 minutes. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Sorry about the mic. My name's Nick Baker, and for those of you who do not know me, I was born and raised in Bloomington, Indiana. I went to Indiana University, and I went to law school in Indianapolis at the McKinney School of Law.
Hey, Nick, we can't hear you.
Well, we had a sound check before. Everything was fine.
I can hear Nick okay.
For the last 20 years, I've been a practicing attorney in the state of Indiana. I'm the only attorney in the country that brought the Camp Lejeune water contamination case to the United States Supreme Court. I'm also the only attorney in the state suing the state of Indiana, remaining Ku Klux on our books. And my campaign's theme are on three things. I would like to focus on unity and not division. We need to focus on the problems that 80% of Americans agree need solutions, and we need to provide solutions to them and stop talking about problems. Second tenet of my campaign is I'd like to bring back a balanced budget to Washington. There hasn't been a balanced budget but once in my 46 years of my life. And the only way I know we can do that is we have to completely and totally overhaul American healthcare and get the grift out of insurance companies and administrators and compliance, sucking the majority of the dollars out so that we can balance our budget. And if we tax the rich, we will balance the budget. And if you give me the grace and the opportunity, I'm by far the most moderate Democrat that gives us the best chance in this extremely conservative district and the best chance to beat Jefferson Shreve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Dr. Wirth, can we hear you okay now?
I think so. I can, after the music, everything just cut off. I could see you, but I'm Dr. Cinde Wirth, and I am a 7th generation resident of Indiana's 6th District. I've raised my family here. I taught public school here. I have a small business here. I have worked on Capitol Hill as a legislative fellow. I've written and passed public policy, earned my PhD. And not only was I born and raised in this district, I continue to lay my head down every night in this district. I know the people of the 6th District because I am an everyday working Hoosier in the 6th District. I'm a scientist, I'm a public school teacher, and a small business owner. I'm the granddaughter of the lady in our town bakery who made the yellow smiley face cookies. I'm the first to graduate from my family to graduate from college. And I'm also the first to earn that PhD. More times than I can count, like every other woman I know, I've been told to go back to the kitchen where I belong. And that is not where I belong. The funny thing is about people making those comments about going back to the kitchen and baking cookies. Those cookies my grandmother baked built a life for my dad and his family. And I'm very proud of that. And that's what working people do. But I'm tired. I'm tired of a healthcare system that profits off of our illnesses. I'm ready for healthcare that benefits us all and puts people over profits. I'm tired of struggling to pay housing, childcare, and groceries because everyone's American dream should be achievable. I'm tired of our tax dollars destroying schools thousands of miles away. And I'm ready to build programs right here in central Indiana and rebuild our school system, rebuild our public educational system so that our communities are improved. And I am just 100% committed to this race and finishing the work I started in 2022 when no one else would run and nobody else would come and help me try to change this district.
Thank you, Dr. Wirth. So let's begin. And I want to start with a question about the separation of powers in Washington. Liza in New Palestine submitted a question about checks and balances. Over the past 8 weeks, the United States has been at war with Iran, a conflict initiated without a single vote of Congress. But the war powers question is only the most dramatic example of a broader pattern. This administration has unilaterally imposed sweeping tariffs using emergency statutes to bypass Congress on trade policy the Constitution explicitly reserves for the legislature, and has refused to spend funds Congress has already appropriated, reviving an impoundment authority Nixon tried and Congress explicitly killed with the Impoundment Control Act of 1974. So 2 questions, really. What specific steps would you take to reassert congressional authority on war, on trade, on tariffs, on spending, and prevent any president from unilaterally seizing powers the Constitution reserves for the legislature? And what is your position on the war with Iran? How should the United States be in it, and how does it end? And we will start here with Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Scott. I think this is obviously, for everyone that's likely watching this, one of the huge issues we've witnessed through the performance of this administration. And it's been an attack on the Article 1 section of government and Article 1, Section 1, which is the House of Representatives, the very first branch of government, that we must take that back. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is by getting Democrats to win this election, this midterm election, get the gavel back from Speaker Johnson, and introduce legislation challenging the Article 2 executive branch. This is by design. If the Trump administration wants to tear us down, they want to create less approval for Congress so that people will gradually drift to autocracy, and giving the powers to the executive branch. That is exactly what Trump wants and what is exactly wrong. Once we get the gavel back, we can get those checks and balances back on board. About the war in Iran. The war in Iran is not legal. It was not authorized by the Congress. While I am not a supporter of Iran, and I think anyone who has a podium from which that says death to America on the front is not somebody we should do business with and we should push back against, but we should do it legally and lawfully under our Constitution.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Mr. Amyx, 90 seconds to you, sir. Oh, you're muted, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So sorry about that. So let's talk about war powers for a minute. You know, the problem isn't just that presidents stretch authority. It's that Congress rarely enforces it by its own limits. I think some concrete steps to fix it, we can replace the War Powers Act or the War Powers Resolution, excuse me, of 1973 with a more modern version that requires explicit congressional authorization within 30 days of any hostilities, no vague 60-day drift. We need to define hostilities, something that defines hostilities broadly, like cyber, drones, special ops, things like that. No automatic funding cutoff. Or automatic funding cutoff, excuse me, no authorization means no funding. When it comes to trades and tariffs, Congress has slowly handed the tariff power over to president, and he's just gone hog wild with it. I think at this point, we need to require congressional approval within 60 to 90 days, and it just automatically expires. We need to create a congressional trade review board that's independent, it's bipartisan, and fast-track review of executive trade actions, excuse me. And we need to sunset tariffs, which forces Congress to periodically reauthorize the delegation. When it comes to the emergency powers and the unilateral actions, the president's increasing use of these emergencies powers to bypass Congress entirely, and it needs to stop. The concrete steps, I would say, is to reform the National Emergencies Act, require affirmative congressional approval within 30 to 60 days, not just the ability to disapprove, which is often vetoed. No more indefinite permanent emergencies. That needs to stop. And we need to clearly define which statutes activate under emergencies. And we need to allow Congress to quickly challenge executive overreach in court.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Mr. Amyx. Dr. Wirth, 90 seconds.
So again, you know, Article 1 of the Constitution gives Congress alone the power to declare war. And what we are seeing is no accountability in our current elected officials to uphold the checks and balances of our Constitution. And you know, with that, it's not just the war; it is, you know, trade, tariffs, you know, all of that, which are affecting everybody's everyday lives. Not only putting our sons and daughters in harm's way. You know, my son will be, you know, conscripted if it comes to that. And I think that's where we really need to have people who are willing to take a stand, who are willing to fight for the checks and balances to be appropriately, you know, held in check on the executive branch. Every person in Congress, House and Senate, take an oath to defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. And I think we have a good case here that we have domestic enemies who are in our government right now and need to be held accountable in whatever way that we can hold them accountable for what has happened, because abandoning these checks and balances is abandoning our democracy. So I fully commit to putting these rules back in place. And as far as Iran and getting out of the conflict in Iran, I think we need to put our diplomatic corps back in the State Department. We have professionals who they do this. This is their job. They know what to do. People in Congress are not diplomatic professionals, and we rely on our professional core of people. Sorry, I went over a little bit.
You're good. Thank you, Dr. Wirth. Let's move on and talk about accountability within the tech industry. And Sherbert in Johnson County wrote in to ask about this. Earlier this month, investigators uncovered a network of online chat groups dubbed Rape Academy by its participants, with an estimated 62 million members, using platforms that have faced little to no legal consequence for hosting and algorithmically amplifying said content. It is a grotesque but useful illustration of what a decade of congressional inaction on Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act has produced. Section 230 shields platforms from legal liability for content their users post, and in many cases, content their own algorithms actively promote. What is your position on platform liability? Should tech companies be held legally accountable for content their algorithms amplify? And what specific legislation would you support to make the internet, and social media in particular, safer for the people it most consistently fails? Mr. Amyx, I will start with you.
Well, that is a fantastic question. I have experience in this area myself, having worked online and uncovered some propaganda networks myself and seen kind of in the belly of the beast. And I've written some legislation that I'm ready to take on day one. Two pieces called the Real Identity Integrity Act and the Digital Integrity and Algorithmic Accountability Act. Excuse me. We need to hold these tech platforms accountable. As far as Section 230 goes, it needs to be repealed entirely. The platforms need to be held accountable. There is a way for us to protect kids and protect people online. The Real Identity Integrity Act will help with that. They're tokenized logins where you go through. It's similar to like the ID Me, which is what you would use to log into the IRS. You're able to get these accounts. And instead of going to Twitter or Facebook, you go through the credentialing services, you get your login token, then you can go to Twitter and create an account. It still allows you to have anonymity. You're still able to know who you are. If you want to use your name, or if you want to use a pseudonym name on that online, you can. But in instances of children under the age of 18, it will add an extra layer by connecting them to their parents. It will not monitor. It's not something that would restrict free speech. It's something that would protect everyone online. It stops the bots. It stops the propaganda networks. It really safeguards against these things. As far as the Digital Integrity and Algorithmic Accountability Act, that is what exposes all the algorithms and requires them to follow a certain set of guidelines on algorithms for platforms. It's hard to get through both of those in 96 seconds.
I understand. Dr. Wirth, let's hear from you on this one.
So as a classroom teacher, I have dealt with this a lot with cyberbullying, students with devices, big tech companies not being held accountable for, the products that they put out there and the damage that they do to people. But in terms of the Rape Academy, I mean, just absolutely 100% disgusting. But given the fact that over 20% of women have been sexually assaulted at some point in their life, which is over 170 million women, and we've got 62 million views of that website in what, 1 month, it's just gross that men are shocked that this happened. I think women know. Cyberbullies come in all forms, but it is more than just cyberbullies. So I think when we look at companies, especially big tech companies, big companies with lots of money and lots of influence, we need some guardrails there. We need some accountability. We need to pass these laws that do protect people, and protections, especially with people online, are key. There are several bills that have been put out there over the last 15 years that have just been shot down over and over again because of finances and the big money involved. And that's the root of it all, is the money.
Thank you, Dr. Wirth. Mr. Baker, 90 seconds to you, sir.
The Rape Academy is absolutely appalling, and it's disgusting. I think with Section 230, the Silicon Valley has been the Wild West of allowing basically tech companies to do whatever they want and the harming our children. Frankly, people get involved in more car accidents. We have tons of car accidents, things that they could control and they know are harming and killing Americans every single day. And yet we do nothing. And that's just simply a product of who's in charge right now and who's in control of the committees and the gavel and Congress, as well as the presidency. We have to win Congress so that we can get there and change these policies. I applaud the trial lawyers out in New Mexico that were able to secure a verdict against Instagram and Meta for basically harboring all of these child sexual predators on their platform and knowing that these people are preying on children. And we have to look at the Haley's Law issue here in Indiana. I have no tolerance for any person that is preying on children. I don't even believe there's therapy for those types of people. It is something that we need to, as a government, push back and shut down in any manner we can. But we cannot bring in regulation to the extent where we're going to be in total censorship. We must pick and choose, and we must be careful.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Let's move on to our next topic. And a few weeks ago, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem was removed from her post, shuffled into a made-up diplomatic role, while a different MAGA loyalist, Markwayne Mullin, slid in to replace her. It is a small modicum of accountability for an agency that has blood on its hands. Multiple U.S. citizens shot and killed by masked, unidentified agents, and whose funding would rank it among the top 15 military budgets on the planet. A majority of Democrats now support abolishing ICE outright, though elected Democrats have been far more reticent to say so out loud, instead calling for reforms. What about you? Can this agency be reformed, or should it be abolished entirely? And what does a safe and humane immigration policy actually look like? Dr. Wirth, let me start with you this time.
So back this summer, I called for ICE to be abolished, and I was, the lone candidate out there calling for this. In fact, I started and worked with another candidate for the 9th District for an anti-ICE rally that we held at Johnson County Park in Atterbury. And while we have professionals in immigration and customs and border protection at our points of entry to our country, they are professionals. They are trained. We do not need ICE as we know it right now, which is a different entity running around, stealing people off the streets, murdering them. And it should be abolished. We should defund it. It should not have been, the funding should never have been passed. I think even our Democratic lawmakers who are voting for this, I think they should be censured within the party, because this is harming people. This is harming citizens. We have people who are here legally, and who had protections as residents, that those have been stripped away. And it's unconscionable that we are at this point where we have, these people running around our country and causing so much harm. So I fully am 100% that we need to abolish ICE. We need to go ahead and, keep our existing professional core of Customs and Border Patrol at our ports of immigration, or in our points where we enter our country. But the rest of it really needs it. We need to take a strong stand against it.
Thank you, Dr. Wirth. Let me hear from you on this topic, Mr. Baker.
Thank you. Most all of us in this country are immigrants or their descendants. I am somebody who believes that those who follow the rules to immigrate into our country should not be allowed to have people cut in front of the line, that we should give favor to the rule followers. I am the only candidate, I believe, on this ticket that is not for the full abolishment of ICE. And that is because if we think back to Clinton and Obama, they deported more people on their time in office, and they did it without separating babies from families, detaining people for more than a year, taking away all the immigration judges to hear the cases, pepper spraying children in the street, executing Americans in the street, kicking down doors without signed warrants. This is a product of who's in charge and the absolute idiots who are running the country right now. Kristi Noem spent $220 million, more than double, the value of many Hollywood movies for a couple commercials. They're just grabbing money and sending it out the back door. We need to give back ICE its power that it had before. There's a lot of career service people there that are not a part of these knuckleheads and guys who came out of their mother's basement to take a $42,000 bonus. We can get this institution back to where it should be. And I think we shouldn't be saying things like defund the police, because that's what abolishing ICE sounds like to me. And it's not going to be effective in this conservative district to make that claim. You're not going to get moderate and independent voters saying that.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Mr. Amyx, 90 seconds to you.
All right. So listen, I don't support funding ICE or Customs and Border Patrol without reform written into law. And honestly, I think that debate is too small for the problem that we actually have and that we're facing right now. Because the truth is, we're not just dealing with a funding issue, we're dealing with a broken immigration system. And none of my opponents have a real plan to fix it. I do. It's called the Unity Pathway Act. It's something I'm very proud of, and I announced of May of last year when I started calling for the abolishment of ICE. This is a full structured overhaul of our immigration system, enforcement, accountability, and a real pathway forward, all in one plan, and it's self-funded. Here's what that means in practice. First, it's order and accountability. Under my plan, undocumented individuals don't just get a free pass, they earn provisional legal status. After 5 years of doing everything right, they can apply for a green card, then citizenship after that. That's not amnesty, it's accountability. Right now, ICE is bloated, inconsistent, and focused on the wrong things. So my plan does something bold but necessary. We sunset ICE as it exists today and replace it with a new agency called the Immigration Enforcement Service. And we refocus enforcement where it actually belongs. Human trafficking networks, cartel operations, violent criminals, and employers exploiting illegal labor. No families, not families, not workers following the rules, not kids in school, but we also separate civil immigration from criminal enforcement because you don't send tactical agents to handle paperwork issues. You handle it like the IRS with compliance, audits, and accountability.
Thank you, Mr. Amyx. So, as the federal government throws hundreds of billions of dollars at Homeland Security, Americans are struggling to pay their bills. Democrats have latched on to affordability as a central talking point in this election cycle, and voters are right to demand solutions, but a talking point is not a policy. Grocery prices, rent, healthcare, childcare, the cost of being alive in America keeps climbing, and just saying we'll lower costs is insufficient. How? What do you see as the root cause of the affordability crisis, and what specific steps would you take in Congress to address it? And I'll come back to you to begin this one, Mr. Amyx.
All right. So affordability is not one issue. Like you said, Scott, it's wages, it's healthcare, it's housing, it's childcare, all hitting families all at once. Right now, even the latest economic data shows why people still feel squeezed. Prices were up 3.3% over the year in March. Wages were up 3.5%, and real hourly earnings were only up 0.3%. Families know that means they are barely treading water. So my approach is structural, honestly. First, raise wages responsibly with tax relief and wage offset support for small businesses so working people earn more without crushing Main Street. Second, lower healthcare costs through universal coverage because healthcare is one of the biggest expenses eating up family budgets and business budgets. Third, we're going to tackle housing by expanding supply, investing in construction and skilled trades, and rewarding communities that build workforce housing. Fourth, we're going to treat childcare like the economic issue it is. Indiana just had to put another $200 million into childcare vouchers. And even then, tens of thousands of kids are still waiting. When families can't afford childcare, parents cannot afford to work and local economies suffer. That is the difference between talking about affordability and actually fixing it.
Thank you, Mr. Amyx. Mr. Baker, let's come to you next on this question, sir.
The affordability crisis is, yes, inflation is obviously affecting that, but we haven't raised the minimum wage for 17 years. Obviously, we need to shore that up, get back to more egalitarian policy where we're capturing more revenue from the high earners and providing more relief to the families and Hoosiers who need the help, and rewarding the working class Hoosiers and lower income Hoosiers who give us all of the services that provide everything that we have. The source of those things are not just limited to those. Insurance is actually the largest inflationary metric. Casualty loss insurance industry has not had any oversight nationally over it at all. And state agencies, state departments of insurance are not doing anything to enforce their premium charges. You have anywhere between 10 and 21% increases in insurance rates, all while their profits have exploded fourfold in the last 3 years alone. And there are those who think that there are too many lawsuits and it's just trial lawyers. That's just simply not true. There aren't as many there's not even 1/5 the lawsuits there were in the 70s that there are now. And we are allowing insurance companies and rich individuals make all their money. We need to reform healthcare. I don't believe we can get immediately to universal healthcare. We don't need to give universal healthcare to the richest people in the country, but we need to get all of the consulting and insurance costs out of healthcare, at least those that come from the government. And we need to get affordability back to the people so we can give the taxes that are paid to Washington back to Main Street and back to the cities within the communities within the 6th Congressional District.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Dr. Wirth, you're the last one to go on this question. What do you have to say?
So life is much more expensive, and it's the basic reason why I'm running for this and why I decided to run. When we move to a Medicare for all or a single payer universal health care system, that will give essentially every single family a lift of about $24,000. And that's with only a 2 to 3% administrative overhead. So when we spread that risk, we can cover everyone from birth on in a single payer universal healthcare system. The other things that we really need to look at doing is holding CEO pay in check, because right now it exceeds 10 times the average worker rate. That's not okay. And there are tools that we have that we can use, with our antitrust laws and our corporate responsibility laws, and expect our corporations to pay their taxes and be good contributors to our communities. Those living wages, those come with the help of unions. Those come with the help of true small businesses. And when we have universal single payer healthcare, we can have those true small businesses, the mom and pops that can afford to pay more wages because we're not, exceeding everybody's budget with healthcare. We need over 50 million units in affordable housing across the nation. It's one thing that my family's been involved in since the 1970s, and we are still involved in it. Along those same lines, investing in childcare infrastructure will make sure that we don't have to have people make those choices between care for their children and careers. And how do we pay for it? Tax the ultra wealthy.
Thank you, Dr. Wirth. So all of you mentioned healthcare costs as one of the drivers of our affordability crisis. And let's talk about healthcare a little bit more in depth now. At a forum in Hancock County this past March, Mr. Baker, you said, and I'm quoting directly, quote, I would love the dream of universal healthcare to come true, but I don't think right now it's a workable solution. And you went on to say that preventative care is, quote, the last thing we should address, and that what's needed is to shore up the Affordable Care Act while preserving a private healthcare market so that we still have capitalism and competition. So, because I'm using your quote as a way in here, Mr. Baker, I'll start with you. Do you stand by that statement? And to all three of you, the rest of the industrial world has largely solved this problem through some government intervention. A couple of you have sort of hinted at this already. What is your solution? A strengthened ACA, a public option, Medicare for all, or something else? And the real question is, how do you get there from where we are? Mr. Baker, I'll start with you.
Well, you got most of my statement correct, but I don't think I've ever said prop up ACA. In fact, I don't actually believe that at all. That system to me is broken. In fact, the ACA has propped up a broken healthcare system. It's totally wrong. Right now, medical debt is the number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States. 51 cents of every healthcare dollar do not actually go to healthcare. We can take all of those 51 cents of every dollar and redistribute them through our healthcare system and get them to doctors and nurses and actual rural hospitals so that they don't have to be under threat of shutting down. I would believe in a public option. Again, I don't think universal healthcare is a workable solution. Now, if we can get to 2/3 majority in all of Congress, then absolutely, I'll support that and push that through. But again, I don't think it should be our drive to ensure that the richest people in this country get free healthcare right now. We have to look for savings anywhere we possibly can get it. And frankly, our campaign is the only one I hear talking about, okay, where are we going to come up with the dollars to actually provide a solution? I do not actually support ACA. I want to completely reform it, and I want Medicare for more, not Medicare for all. And I want to leave the capitalistic system open so that if there are those rich people who say, I'm not buying into this and I don't want to participate, or providers that don't want to participate in it, then they can step aside and play in the capitalistic market and invite those people who want to play. We can leave the markets open and allow competition to regenerate a better solution, all while getting rid of healthcare dollars being wasted out of Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Dr. Wirth, I'll come to you. You said you supported Medicare for all. How do we get there?
So over 70% of the American public want universal single payer health care in some form. There are several forms that we can look at choosing, and there have been several bills that have been put forth to Congress that have never made it through on that. Preventive care is a critical part of healthcare, and I'll just leave it at that. Preventive care is a critical part of healthcare. Single payer healthcare can cover that. We can also move toward instead of sick care, we can look at wellness care. There are plans and roadmaps again out there. As I said, over 70% of the U.S. wants this, and so there have been lots of proposals out there to phase in either age groups or do it all in one fell swoop. There are programs out there that have ways that we take everyone who's working in the insurance industry and we have the jobs that pay the same rates or better with better hours and better pay in many cases, so that no one is left without a job either. Again, paying for this, there's several ways. There's a payroll tax way, which is one of the most sensible ways we look at it. But in addition to that, when we're talking about other things that we need to cover, there's that wealth tax or that investment tax when you have people of high net worth and they make, let's say, Jefferson Shreve stock trades his first 3 months in office, that's $60 million that he made. A tax of 2% would go, and if it was everyone who did that at that income level, that would go a long way toward paying for some of the other things.
Thank you, Dr. Wirth. Last word on this topic goes to you, Mr. Amyx.
So I'm going to agree with Dr. Wirth that preventative care is a critical part of healthcare. I'm with Dr. Wirth on this. I believe in universal health care. I don't believe that we should flip the light switch on this. I think we will crush our rural hospital system if we do that. We have to phase that in. So I support a phase-in process. The federal government has to lead because the current patchwork system is just way too expensive. It's too unstable. It's too hard for working families to navigate, period. I support the universal healthcare, as I said, because healthcare should be a right and because it's one of the biggest cost of living issues that we have. And it's not abstract. Indiana is rebidding about $68 billion in Medicaid contracts right now. And providers have been waiting on hundreds of millions of dollars in delayed Medicaid payments. That instability hurts patients, hospitals, nursing homes, and the people delivering care. My plan is simple: guarantee the coverage, allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices more aggressively, cap out-of-pocket costs, strengthen rural care, and stops forcing small businesses and family to carry the burden of broken private insurance-centered systems. We already spend more than any other wealthy countries. The problem is not that we spend too much caring for people. The problem is that we spend too much feeding inefficiency, administrative waste, and profit taking. If you want to lower the cost of living in Indiana, healthcare is one of the biggest places that we can start.
Thank you, Mr. Amyx. Let's move from healthcare to education. So, the Trump administration has taken a chainsaw to the Department of Education, slashing funding, pushing voucher schemes that siphon public dollars into private and religious schools, and threatening the existence of the department itself. Title I funding that supports schools in low-income communities across Indiana is on the chopping block. Student loan debt continues to crush a generation of Hoosiers who were told that a degree was the path to a middle-class life. And for educators themselves, stagnant wages and an increasingly hostile political environment are making teaching a profession young people are fleeing rather than entering. How do you protect public education in Indiana's 6th District, and what is your vision for making education from pre-K through higher ed accessible and affordable for every Hoosier? Mr. Amyx, let's start with you here.
So listen, I've worked in higher education now it'll be 22 years in June. I respect educators. I've worked alongside them for over 2 decades. But as a member of Congress, my job will be to make sure that the system around them actually works. So first, we need to increase the federal investment in public education, especially Title I and IDEA. So schools serving working families aren't constantly forced to do more with less. Second, we have to be honest about vouchers and charter expansion. I just put out a post today, Micah Beckwith. Everybody's seen what he had to say. If you haven't, go check out my Facebook. I commented about what he said. His comment basically proves that the voucher systems are draining funds away from public schools. And quite honestly, I support ending the voucher program. They were a great idea to begin with many years ago, but they are being weaponized and used against schools now to where they're hurting them. Third, we need to invest in people, teachers. If we can pay ICE agents over $100,000 a year with bonuses and salary, we damn sure can pay our teachers the same. And finally, we need to modernize how we prepare students. Not every student's path is the same, so we expand federal support for career and technical education. So whether a student wants to go to college, enter a trade, or start working right away, they graduate with a real path forward. And finally, this is big for me. Working in higher education as a senior financial aid officer and formerly as a veteran affairs advisor, I want to pass a law that makes all students independent at the age of 18, therefore not relying on parent income when they fill out their FAFSA.
Thank you, Mr. Amyx. Mr. Baker, I'll come to you next.
As I said at the Hancock County Forum, I believe by the time we get there next January, we may be having to resurrect the Department of Education rather than salvage it. But I intend to try to do whatever I can to increase federal funding for education. I think it's been a tragedy we've seen over the last 20 years of how dollars, and through the voucher system primarily, have been funneled away from particularly the 6th Congressional District and the rural communities throughout it into private institutions more in the urban areas throughout the state. But one thing I've seen explode and I've heard about throughout the district is how much homeschooling has increased. And it's a simple byproduct of what state policy we've seen and then the attack federally. But I'm a realist, and I think we need to be that. We can't act like these pie in the sky ideas we want to do, we can immediately do. Right now, the Supreme Court is going to uphold the voucher system. We can have good trial lawyers challenge when certain religious institutions charge different amounts, and we could sue for that to cut off and ask that they either kick their discrimination and get rid of their vouchers or take their vouchers and get rid of their discrimination. But I know that's a case we should win even in this Supreme Court. If we take those fights to the courts and then we change and get these elections won, we need to think about who's going to actually win the election so that we can get our progressive policies to Washington and back to the state of Indiana.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Dr. Wirth, last word to you on this topic.
So my PhD is in cultural and educational policy. Their vouchers have never been a good idea, and the people who helped devise vouchers or reinvent them in our modern world, because we had a system of that after Brown versus Board of Education. Vouchers were designed originally to uphold segregation in schools. Again, that's what they're essentially being used for again. So I will just state it again. They've never been a good idea. We do need to work to overturn the Espinoza versus Montana case, which was what allowed public tax dollars to go to private religious schools. That needs to end. We need to put some laws in place and overturn that, work to overturn that decision too. Recognizing teachers as professionals, just as we have doctors and lawyers and business people who are professionals, teachers are also professionals and need to be treated as such. The new laws making teaching degrees not available for loans, that is hurting even more. So that needs to be undone as well. The Individuals with Disabilities Act is something that protects all students and gives all students a federal right to education, no matter their disability. Public schools have to take all students. Private schools do not. And so when public tax dollars make their way to private schools, they can take those tax dollars, take those students, and then a month later or a week later, kick those kids out. Those kids then will go back to public schools. So it's critical that we put back in place our protections of our public schools and our public tax dollar monies that go to our public schools. I'm the only candidate in this race with classroom experience, and I know what it's like to struggle in the classroom with students that you didn't plan for.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Wirth. We were just talking about education, and schools have been one of the primary battlegrounds in the culture war over LGBTQ rights, from book bans to bathroom bills to the ongoing fight over transgender student athletes. And the Democratic Party is having an internal argument about how to respond. California Governor Gavin Newsom has argued that Democrats need to be more, quote, culturally normal, language that prompted immediate pushback from LGBTQ advocates who heard it as a signal that the party is willing to trade their rights for political expediency. When pressured, Newsom clarified he was talking about specific issues like gender-affirming care for incarcerated people, but the damage was done. The LGBTQ caucus in his own state had already called him out for siding with conservatives on transgender athletes in schools. So we want to put the question directly to you. Is Newsom right? Do Democrats need to be more culturally normal, whatever that means? And where do you draw the line between smart politics and abandoning the people who need the party's protection most? Dr. Wirth, I'll come back to you to start this one.
No, that is ridiculous. There is nothing. So I'm an anthropologist. There is no cultural normalcy. I mean, it doesn't exist. Newsom is wrong. It is not okay. Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. When I was a fellow in Washington, D.C., I chose Jared Polis's office to work in because it was the head of the LGBTQ caucus on the Hill. I am an advocate of every human right for every person. Everybody should be allowed to be who they are, be free to be who they are, be free to marry and love or not marry who they desire. I just wholeheartedly embrace this. I was the teacher who was changing attendance lists to protect my trans students. I did it by hand. I would make sure I knew who the subs were. I would make sure I knew which subs were friendly. I was the teacher doing this before this was a thing, back in 2010. I think those kind of statements from Gavin Newsom are irresponsible, hurtful, and he needs to retract those. That is not the party that I am a part of. That is not how I think any human being should be treated.
Thank you, Dr. Wirth. Mr. Baker, I'll come to you next.
I'm not touching whatever Gavin Newsom said. I don't even know what that is. Obviously, he doesn't even know what he said. I'm somebody who's for liberty first, civil rights, and your own choice to do what it is you want to do. And I want the government to get out of people's way. And if that means loving, somebody who's of the same sex that they are, then that's something that's their business. And I don't really think government has any business there. This issue, though, we need to be careful. It's a wedge issue that is used as gotcha politics, used for cancel politics. But if I were to have to give my opinion on these things, I personally don't believe that, if you have to be 18 years old to get a tattoo, maybe you should have to be 18 to make final decisions about gender affirming care. That seems reasonable to allow somebody to get to adulthood to make that decision and not have any regulation around it. I also don't think if somebody's claiming they're of a certain sex and yet they still have, the parts of the other sex, they shouldn't be participating in the same locker room like we've seen in some of these sporting events. That's ridiculous. And that's some of the things that moderates and independents will hang us on if we bring that type of policy to this general election. So we need to listen to the constituents in this district, not be unreasonable, obviously protect LGBTQ rights as best we can, but to also honor decency and common sense. Who's your practicality?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Mr. Amyx, last word to you on this topic.
So this topic hits close to home for me. I am gay. I'm the only gay candidate in this district. My position is very simple. Human rights are not negotiable, period. Trans rights are human rights. It means protecting reproductive freedom, defending LGBTQ rights, protecting voting rights, and making sure government does not get to decide whose dignity matters and whose does not. I don't believe that freedom belongs only to people who look a certain way or love a certain way, worship a certain way, or live in the right damn zip code. If you're willing to compromise on people's humanity, then you're going to compromise on everything else. Listen, I know what it's like to be scared to be myself. I know what it's like to walk into a room and read the room to know if I can be myself fully. I will stand up for everyone who has a difference for the rest of my life because I've had to hide who I was a long time ago. And I'm pretty damn proud of the person I am today. And I want to be a shining example for those people and help protect them so that they feel like they can come out and be themselves as well. Trans rights are human rights. I will absolutely stand by. Human rights are not negotiable, and I will never back down on that ever.
Thank you, Mr. Amyx. So we just picked on Gavin Newsom. Let's do it again. When asked at the New York Times Deal Book Summit how he could call for a big tent Democratic Party while being, quote, adamantly against a wealth tax, a policy supported by 95% of Democrats and 72% of all Americans, Newsom implied the tent needs to include billionaires. Meanwhile, Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senator Bernie Sanders have been barnstorming the country, arguing the opposite, that the ultra-wealthy have rigged the tax code in their favor for decades, and it's time to unrig it. Where do you stand? Do you support a wealth tax, raising the top marginal income tax rate? What about corporate taxes? And more broadly, how would you reorient the tax code so that it produces the most good for the most people? And Mr. Baker, I will start with you this time.
We need to completely overhaul the tax code. It has been rigged to the extent that billionaires and large corporations are paying either nothing or 3% of their effective earnings per year, while working class Hoosiers are paying anywhere from 22 to 37% of their actual income. And it's absolutely ridiculous. We have to return to a progressive tax policy and tax system. And you need to have larger tax brackets. There's no reason why we shouldn't have another effective tax rate at $1 million, at $10 million, at $100 million, at $1 billion. And you could make it, but you don't have to make it like it was 1953 when the highest tax bracket was 92 or 97% effective tax rate. You can make it something that is somewhat reasonable, but at least is capturing where they are skirting all of our tax code. We have to close the loopholes that are broken in our system and allowing them to get away with draining our coffers and not allowing our revenue system to bring in the dollars that are necessary to pay for our budget. So we have to completely overhaul the tax code to incorporate those changes. We've done this before. We've had better egalitarian policy. And one of the ways we did it was that we cut corporate taxes, but we increased individual taxes. And by doing that, the CEO has to make a decision. Am I going to take this home to my house and get taxed a whole lot? Or am I going to reinvest it in the company, hire more workers, invest in more capital, more R&D, and create more business in America? I think that's the best path forward.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Mr. Amyx, next word to you, sir.
All right. So, right now, working people in this district are getting squeezed from every direction. Groceries, housing, childcare, healthcare, they're all going up, right? So here's what I support. We're going to be eliminating the federal income tax entirely for individuals under $75,000 a year and for married couples under $150,000. That's real immediate relief for working and middle class families, the people who actually drive the economy. Now, if we're going to do that responsibly, we also have to balance it. I'm not going to pretend that we can cut taxes for working families and just hope the math works out, right? That's where a targeted wealth tax comes in, not on small businesses, not on retirement savings, but on the ultra wealthy. People with tens of millions of dollars and an accumulated wealth paying a small percentage, around 1%, to make sure that we can fund basics, healthcare, infrastructure, and functioning government. This isn't about punishment. It's about responsibility. Because the truth is our economy works best when it works for everyone, not just the top 1% and not just the bottom, but the people in the middle who are doing everything right and still feel like they're falling behind. That's the balance I'm fighting for.
Thank you, Mr. Amyx. Dr. Wirth, final word goes to you on this one, ma'am.
So I've said before that we need a tax on high net worth individuals, billionaires, on investment gains. A tax of 2 to 3% would, on that alone, for our billionaires and ultra high net worth people, would help fund our childcare infrastructure. It would, it would give a lot of people a lot of breathing room. The taxes that I support on ultra wealthy people and investments are not for pensions. They're not for retirees. They're not for people who are living off of that investment. And again, we're talking billionaires. But I do believe after People don't mind paying their fair share of taxes as long as everyone is paying their fair share. And that's the issue that we have right now, is we have so many people who spend so much money to get out of paying their taxes. Some of them could just pay their taxes and probably be money ahead, but they don't want to. They want to stick it to the government or whatever they've been conditioned to say. And I think, in reality, when we take that mindset, we forget that, our fire, our police, our roads, all those things that we really like to have, our potholes filled, those depend on us paying our taxes. So when we hold corporations to pay their taxes and be good members of our community, as well as ultra wealthy people and wealthy people, and I think that's where we need to increase those taxes, and then take a look at what's going on downstream for the working people who are right now holding everything on our backs.
Thank you, Dr. Wirth. So moving on, and in a way, this is also kind of a tax question. Without any changes, Social Security is heading toward insolvency by 2032. That's just 6 years away, at which point benefits would be automatically cut by nearly 28% for every recipient, regardless of age or need. This is not a distant problem. It is increasingly urgent. Republicans have offered their answers: privatize the system, let Wall Street manage your retirement, or raise the retirement age so you work longer and collect less. Progressives have a very different answer. The payroll tax currently exempts every dollar a wealthy American earns above $184,500. Lift that cap, make the rich pay into the system on their full income, and the math changes dramatically. What is your plan to keep Social Security solvent? And what do you say to the Hoosier in their 40s or 50s who has paid into this system their entire working life and is now wondering whether that promise will be kept? Dr. Wirth, right back to you on this one.
Absolutely, 100% raise the Social Security threshold cap to over 400,000. I think it's like 425,000. That would put us solvent for another 30 plus years. I do not agree with privatizing Social Security and letting our social safety net for millions and millions of Americans be put at the mercy of stock traders. It is not a vehicle for somebody to make a profit off of. That is money to make sure that we don't have things anymore like poor houses. We don't have people who are retirees who have nothing and are destitute because they are no longer able to work. There's a reason why we have the Social Security system. We need to safeguard that. We need to make sure that we have things in place where people can retire with dignity. People have enough to eat. Right now, Social Security's kind of been, robbed like a piggy bank, and I think there need to be laws in place on that so that it can't be touched. We do have seniors still who are, going to the food banks and not eating as many meals as they should, and I think that is unconscionable. That we're in the wealthiest country in the world, and we have that issue. But the wealth gap is the issue. And again, it's such a simple, elegant solution, but there are just so many people who demand to make a profit off of the back of everyone they meet. And I think that's where we're at, and that's wrong. And I think we can do better.
Thank you, Dr. Wirth. Mr. Amyx, I will come to you next.
So look, I think raising the cap, like Dr. Wirth said, is one viable way. I don't think that that's the answer. Even economists have said that having even a modest increase to 250 or 400,000, like Dr. Wirth said, it helps, but it only closes a small portion of the long-term funding gap. If you eliminate the cap entirely, but you don't increase benefits for the extra income, that closes that gap roughly to about 70 to 80% of Social Security's 75-year shortfall. So basically, the big takeaway is if you do a small cap increase, 250 or 400,000 increase, it's not enough. Full elimination, it'll fix major solvency improvement, but it's still not 100%. There are a few different ways that are arguable out there. I think One of them is like a small payroll tax increase of 1% to 2%. I'm not a fan of that. It's a tax increase. I don't think any of us really want more taxes, right? So that would be something that I'd want to look more into and some of those additional ways. And I'll be the first to admit, I don't know all of the ways that can fix it. I've looked primarily at those, like Dr. Wirth said, increasing the cap or eliminating it entirely. I'm more of a fan of eliminating it entirely.
Thank you, Mr. Amyx. And Mr. Baker, final word goes to you on this one.
I mean, this is by design. They're trying to absolutely privatize Social Security, but they're doing it through, and this is a problem, I think, and a product of both Democrats and Republicans. It's the fact that we haven't been able to balance a budget, and we've ran just from 2010 from $13 trillion in debt to now $39 trillion in debt. And the third largest line item in our federal budget now is just simply servicing that debt. If we weren't in such a debt hole, we would have plenty of other monies ready to go to cover Social Security. I have no problem with increasing the Social Security tax on income anywhere between 400,000, even all the way up to 500,000. But I, again, don't think that's going to be sufficient to do it. We have to balance the budget ultimately, though, if we're going to save these programs. I believe the Republicans have done this on purpose. They are trying to ultimately put us in such a financial dire strait that we're going to have to make these incredible cuts to these large ticket items. And the only way we're going to get around that is if we get a balanced budget and introduce policy like the Simpson-Bowles policy that was suggested in 2010, which includes cuts as 2/3 of the solution and increases in revenue as 1/3 of the solution. And I believe we can do that. We have to do that. And we have to be cognizant of the amount of people that are about to come off in the baby boomer generation, not only off of our out of our workforce, but then on to our Social Security rolls. So we have to, that's the whole point of my campaign, is try to bring some balance and sensibility to the federal government and to Congress that controls the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. So let's move on to our last full question tonight. And Democrats have been the self-proclaimed party of labor for nearly a century. The PRO Act, the most significant expansion of workers' organizing rights since the New Deal, has been a Democratic priority for years, though we haven't gotten it passed. Public sector unions, teachers, government workers, they remain reliably in the Democratic column. And yet, blue-collar private sector trade union members, the pipe fitters, electricians, iron workers, teamsters, have been drifting toward Republicans for decades. In a district like this one, that drift isn't abstract. It is the difference between winning and losing. So we want you to do two things. Diagnose why it's happening, and tell us what you would specifically do in Congress to win those workers back, not just union leadership's endorsement, but the rank and file's votes. And Mr. Baker, I will come right back to you to start this discussion.
Well, I mean, I believe a lot of this is a product of the right to work laws we've seen introduced across the country and since 2006. So it's been 20 years. I don't think, frankly, those were constitutional acts where you could take people under the NLRB, that you could take people off that are ultimately supposed to benefit from that program globally. I am not, though. At the same time, there's this huge issue that we've confronted, and those are data centers. And I am not a fan of these data centers. And there is not a candidate here that's going to win this election supporting data centers as they've been introduced throughout the 6th Congressional District, and particularly in Decatur Township, where my 42nd acres is located and where I'm building my home. It is a travesty to stand in that room and protest, but to see all of those trade members stand over there so that they could build out a data center. Yes, they'll have good jobs for maybe a year, maybe two. After that, there'll be 75 people working there, less than a Cracker Barrel. And the company that built it will take a tax abatement that's $5 million more than the salaries they're going to bring to the district. And while they're going to hurt us with skirting our environmental laws. So I'm pro-union, but I'm also pro-non-union. I have a lot of friends that are non-union members. And I think that we should support all of them to the extent there are participants in the workforce throughout the 6th Congressional District And we need, though, to stand firm on the policies that are important to us and to what our constituents are saying throughout the 6th Congressional District. Listen to what they say, take that message to Washington, and fight the special interests.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Dr. Wirth, let me come to you next.
So I think the only candidate running maybe in Indiana for Congress who is an active labor union member. I'm a member of the AFT, which is AFL-CIO. I think the PRO Act does need to pass. In a data center forum that I was since I'm an environmental scientist, I was brought in as an expert on energy for data centers. And I'm against data centers because of a myriad of reasons. I called out actually for the repeal of right to work because labor unions are being used as a pawn in the data center promotion. And I think that's wrong. And I think it needs to end. The jobs are not permanent. They actually aren't. We don't even have enough labor union members in Indiana to fill all of those labor jobs that the data centers are promising. Why you were asking, like, why are the trade union members different from, like the teachers union and things like that in their support of Democrats versus Republicans? And I think that comes down honestly to sexism. Because, and it's not probably a feel-good kind of answer, but it is a real one. I'm an expert in critical feminist theory. I have studied it for over a decade, and it's one of the biggest things that we see. And while, yes, there are women in those other trade unions, they're not there in significant numbers. What we're seeing with those education cuts for education loans from the federal government, we're seeing the same thing. Those jobs that are traditionally staffed by women, those are the ones that are being cut for the loans. So it's the same. It's the same thing.
Thank you, Dr. Wirth. Mr. Amyx, last word here goes to you.
So, why the shift is happening, I think that it's a myriad of things. I think the cost of living is overriding party loyalty. A lot of union households don't feel like their paychecks are keeping up with rent, groceries, insurance, and childcare. When both parties are associated with rising costs, voters start choosing based on who feels like they're listening rather than ideology. And I'll be quite blunt. The Democrats haven't been listening for a long time. I say that about my own party. That's coming from Democrats and Republicans. As I said, I've knocked on over 23,000 doors, and that's been the message from both sides of the aisle. I think there's a cultural disconnect. Many union members, especially in manufacturing, logistics, construction, and public safety, feel like national Democrats speak more to professional urban issues than to their daily work realities. Republicans have learned and leaned into respect for workers messaging, even when policy doesn't always or anytime match that. Frustration with institutions. There's a broad distrust of the federal government, corporate leadership, and even union leadership in some sectors. If unions feel distant or overly political, members drift towards whoever is speaking more directly to change. Immigration and trade anxiety is another reason, real or perceived, honestly. Even when unions historically support immigrants, some members feel economic pressure or competition narratives that gets politically exploited. And then we have the wage versus identity framing. Some voters feel politics has shifted towards identity first messaging, while their immediate concern is wages, hours, benefits, and job security.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Amyx. So we've spent the last hour going deep on those 10 issues, and now we want sharp, quick answers on 15 more. Issues where not all Democrats agree and where we think voters deserve to know exactly where you stand. No time for nuance here. These are yes or no, or in one case, give me a number. Let's go. And, you guys kind of brought this up in the last question, but do you support a federal moratorium on new data center construction? Mr. Amyx.
Yes.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Dr. Wirth,
Yes, 100%.
do you support expanding the Supreme Court beyond 9 justices? Dr. Wirth,
Yes.
Mr. Baker,
No.
Mr. Amyx,
Yes.
do you support statehood for DC and Puerto Rico? Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Amyx,
Yes.
Dr. Wirth,
Yes.
do you support a constitutional amendment to abolish the Electoral College? Mr. Amyx,
Hell yes.
Dr. Wirth,
Absolutely yes.
and Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Do you support federal legalization of recreational cannabis? Mr. Amyx,
Hell yes, I do.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Dr. Wirth.
Yes.
Congress is currently debating reauthorization of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA. Do you support it, Dr. Wirth?
No.
Mr. Amyx,
No.
Mr. Baker,
No.
do you support withholding military aid to Israel? Mr. Baker,
No.
Dr. Wirth,
I want to make sure that you said it the way I think you said it. So no no military aid to Israel.
thank you, and Mr. Amyx.
Yeah, no military aid to Israel. I was confused like Dr. Wirth. I'm like, can you restate that question? No military aid to Israel. As long as we're on the same page, yes. And no
Thank
aid
you.
to them.
Sorry if that was confusing. Do you support impeaching President Trump, Mr. Amyx?
Yeah, it's like number one priority.
Dr. Wirth,
Yes.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
do you support free public higher education? Dr. Wirth,
Yes.
Mr. Baker,
No.
Mr. Amyx,
Yes, I do.
do you support cancellation of all outstanding student debt? Mr. Baker,
No.
Mr. Amyx,
Yes.
Dr. Wirth,
Yes.
do you support universal federally funded child care? Mr. Amyx,
Yes.
Dr. Wirth,
Yes.
Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Is Hakeem Jeffries your pick for Speaker of the House? Mr. Baker,
No.
Dr. Wirth,
No.
Mr. Amyx,
No.
do you support a federal assault weapons ban? Mr. Amyx,
Yes.
Mr. Baker,
No.
Dr. Wirth,
Yes.
do you support abolishing the federal death penalty? Mr. Amyx,
No.
Dr. Wirth,
You cut out, so I didn't hear the question.
oh, sorry. Do you support abolishing the federal death penalty?
Yes.
And Mr. Baker.
No.
Finally, the federal minimum wage has been $7.25 since 2009. What should it be? Give me a number. Let's say by 2030. Dr. Wirth.
I don't know that you can give that a number because it's by 2030. We don't know what inflation's going to be. It's got to be a living wage for wherever that community is.
Can I? Okay, Mr. Baker.
I believe by 2030 we could at least get to $15.
Mr. Amyx.
I've said that I want to see a phased in approach for $25 an hour. So taking office in 2027, 4 years, 2031, it should be $25 an hour. So by 2030, it should be 23. So it's still $25 an hour for me, just 2031. How's that?
Okay, very good. Thank you all for that lively speed round. Finally, we'd like to give each of our candidates 2 minutes to make their closing argument, to tell the voters of Indiana's 6th Congressional District why they are the right person for this moment. By random draw, Mr. Amyx will go first, followed by Mr. Baker, and then Dr. Wirth. Mr. Amyx, 2 minutes to you, sir.
All right. So tonight, you guys have got to hear a lot of different approaches. Mine is pretty simple. Tell the truth, respect people enough to be specific, and do the work. I've spent this campaign doing something different than any of the other candidates. I have not attended all events, and I've spent more time in the communities, quietly, going door to door. Rain, sleet, or snow. I've knocked on, it's approaching 24,000, give or take a couple hundred doors. I've got to speak with thousands of you in your living rooms, in your break rooms, in your union halls, at the Eagles or the Knights of Columbus, places like that. I chose to listen to the people first, and I chose to do this by myself because I felt like if I'm going to represent the people, I need to hear what they want from both sides of the aisle, not just the Democrat side. I want to listen before I lead, and I don't want to give slogans, and I don't want to give half measures. I want to give real solutions. And that's precisely what I've started doing. I've taken what the people have said that they want, and I've built that into policy, oftentimes with them. Because to earn back the trust of the people, and the government needs to earn it back, you have to listen to them, and you have to engage them, and you have to work with them. If you want more of the same and just the standard politicians, you have other choices. But if you want somebody who will show up, who will speak plainly, who will fight hard and put Hoosiers first, I'm asking you for your vote. I'm asking you to stand with me, and together we rise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amyx. Mr. Baker, 2 minutes to you, sir.
Thank you. The one thing we haven't talked about, we've talked about all the policy that we would like to bring to Washington. And while that's fine and good, there's one thing we need to do first before we can do that. And that is win this election. And by winning this election, how do we intend to do that? We have to put forward the best candidate, the most electable candidate that is going to actually give Democrats a seat in the Congress. Our campaign easily is that. We cannot go and try the exact same thing that we've done for the last several elections where we have gotten absolutely clobbered 2-to-1 voting. We need to introduce a new candidate that is going to appeal to moderate and independent voters and is going to reach across the aisle. So my question to those that are watching and to all those in the 6th Congressional District, but particularly to Democrats and progressives, do you want the most progressive candidate or do you want the most electable candidate that is progressive? Or do you want Jefferson Shreve? The choice is yours, and you need to decide and have a reasonable conversation with yourself and with your families and friends about who actually in November has the best chance to win this election. And we truly believe we have that will give us the best chance to do that. We will also give representative government back to the 6th Congressional District. And yes, we will be finally a Democratic representative, the first since 1939 in Finley Gray for a lot of these counties. We must pay attention to who the voters are in this district and what gives us the best chance to move forward. So we ask for your vote, we ask for your support and for your volunteering and grassroots efforts, and hope that you will support Nick Baker for Congress in the 6th Congressional District.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Dr. Wirth, final word goes to you tonight.
I'm just an ordinary Hoosier who got sick and tired of watching people struggle. And so I decided to do something about that in 2022 when no one would run against Greg Pence and then no one would run against Jefferson Shreve. So I have worked to build the trust of people all across the 6th District in all 11 counties. And I show up for them at whenever they need it. I show up for a couple people, or I'll show up for a couple thousand people. I'm ready for healthcare that benefits all of us and puts people over profits. I'm ready for everyone to be able to achieve the American dream again. I'm ready to build programs that improve our communities along with you all. And I'm ready for ending corporate-minded men dragging us down, ending people using AI to talk down to us. I'm ready to end sending our sons, daughters, brothers, and sisters off to illegal wars and unconstitutional wars. I'm ready to lift everybody up in Indiana's 6th District as the first Democratic woman to represent us. I've worked hard. I have built an incredible volunteer team. So thank you to every volunteer who has come out to help us and support. It means an amazing thing to see, and it means a lot to me. I am ready to go for single payer healthcare, good wages, affordable childcare, affordable housing, public schools fully funded to serve all students, and a clean, healthy environment with laws to uphold that. I am a person who will stand up to bullies, whether they are in Congress, in the White House, or on the corner of your block. I am the one that you can trust to get the job done. And I have been doing this since 2022. This district is ready to go because of my hard work.
Thank you, Dr. Wirth. And thanks to all of our candidates for being part of this evening's conversation. Running for office is not easy. It is an act of vulnerability that takes real courage, and that deserves recognition regardless of where voters ultimately land. On behalf of everyone here today, I want to thank all three of our candidates for their time, their candor, and their willingness to engage seriously with the hard questions voters in this district deserve answers to. I also want to thank Progressive Indiana Network for organizing this evening's event and for their ongoing commitment to making sure Hoosier voters have the information they need to make informed decisions. Early voting has begun, and Indiana's primary election day is May 5th. Whoever wins that primary will carry the Democratic banner into one of the most consequential midterm elections in modern American history. Your vote in the primary is not a formality. It is a choice about what kind of Democrat this district might send to Washington. Make it count. Join us Saturday at 2 p.m. for our final debate of this primary cycle when Brad Meyer, Tim Peck, and Kyle Rourke face off in the 9th Congressional District. Casey Blundell will moderate. But for now, on behalf of the entire PIN team, I'm Scott Aaron Rogers. Love each other, Indiana.